All right, what's up, LukaNation? So, as we're kind of winding down our 10 for 10 series, we got Cage has his Coke. We got John the basketball.
I'm ready.
John
This is
the
a caffeinated
card
episode.
guy.
Let's go.
We're 13 seconds in, and Cage is cutting me off. Life is good, man. We have reached equilibrium. This is what we're doing. So, what's up, LukaNation? Welcome back to another episode of Luka's Tigers and Bronze. Oh my! We've had this 10 for 10 series going, and we're about 2 or 3 episodes away from the end. And first off, got to give you guys a shout out because a lot of the high profile guests we've been able to get on are really just a testament to our community. You guys watch, you share, you comment, and that obviously helps us in the rankings. And it shows the guests that, you know, we're really doing the best job we can to promote what we're doing. I posted a few stories. I wanted to see who did you guys want to have on? And overwhelmingly, basketball card guy John was towards the top. And I consider John a true hobbyist, and we've had John on before. Believe it or not, when we had him on a few months ago, it was one of our most listened to episodes. And I think that's because people can relate with you. And I'm really excited for today's conversation because that's really what it's going to be. It's going to be a conversation. There's going to be laughter. There's going to be jokes. There's going to be stories. And I think you're going to want to stay till the end because there's going to be a really, really good story about how a card that ended up on Nat Turner's 100 for 100 list and the whole story behind it. Hint, hint, it's a Kobe Prizm card that was bought at a show for, we'll get there, guys, cliffhanger. But before we get in there, so John comes on and he says, I've been listening to the 10 for 10. And, you know, I'm kind of, you know, I'm driving and I'm narrating, you know, I agree with this. And who's Andrew, what did you say there? That's craziness. And Cage, yeah. So I'm curious, John, what were some of the topics? What were some of the things that you might have heard on our 10 for 10 that you did agree with? And what are more importantly, what are some of the things that we said or a guest said that you might have a different take, a different spin on?
Sure. Yeah. So overarching, thank you guys for having me back. It's always a pleasure. And yes, I see myself as that pure hobbyist as well. I always say hobby first. I think we'll end with that today too, but starting there as well. That's how I operate throughout this hobby. I know there was actually some discussion in the 10 for 10 there about that, the idea of hobby versus, I call it hobby versus business. I guess that's the terminology I was throwing out when I was in my car. But hobby versus industry versus all of that kind of stuff. To me, like what's core to it being a hobby is that you enjoy it first and that the money is secondary. That's what defines it for me. Like that's why I call myself a hobbyist in it, because that's how I feel about it. Do I make some money in it? Yes. Is the money the primary reason I'm in it? No. And that's the core. And, you know, I'm in it for the hobby. If there was no money in it, I'd still be in it, you know, because I really genuinely love it. And so hearing some of those conversations about the hobby itself and the movement of it, I thought, you know, I was at National as well. And it was my second National. I'd been to the one in Atlantic City 5 years ago, I guess was the last one there. This one was definitely bigger, but I actually felt like it was way more cramped. So for people that weren't there, it was a pretty dimly lit area. Like we were all talking about like the people we met, which is the highlight for me too. But like I thought I go into some of the like the actual like physical when you walk around kind of sense. It's pretty dimly lit. I felt like it wasn't like a Jacob Javits Center for people that are in New York, where it's like you got these tall ceilings and you're like the beautiful carpeting, and like you go to like the auto show and you're like, wow, this is crazy. I feel like I'm in like a really nice hotel. This was like a basement, you know, kind of feel to it more so. The hard floors, the kind of darkness throughout, and it was just packed. You know, I think the thing that struck everybody was the first day there. And I had people message me about this, actually. The first day there on Wednesday, there were more people there by everyone's estimation that I had spoken with on that Wednesday than the Saturday from the last national show 2 years previous. And Saturday is usually like the big traffic day. Mm-hmm. So everyone was just like caught off guard by how many people were showing up. I, having 2 kids, I was a little bit fearful, and they're not vaccinated and they're too young to be vaccinated. I was a little bit fearful for them. I brought them and did not bring them into the show. I mean, that's what ended up happening. I said to my wife, I said, I would love for them to have the experience. I know both of them would love it. but I'm not going to put, the enjoyment for a few hours above safety and, other people at home, their grandparents and folks like that. So we had to make the judgment call there. So walking in and being in tight quarters with a lot of folks, not so many masks. I was wearing 2 masks. I was trying to double up, to help others, I guess. Change the averages, but not so many masks, and it was really tight walking around. And I think that in the past, like when I had been to the last national I had gone to, I had more opportunity to interact with the vendors a little bit more, to be able to trade, to be able to negotiate a bit more. This was like you're shoulder to shoulder with 3-4 other people at the same booth, and you could get a quick price. You might be able to see the card real quick, but there's not a lot of discussion happening, at least that I found at each of those tables. The discussions happen at trade nights. The discussions happen in the lobbies of the hotels in between, at lunches when people left. That the show was like just, I felt like a lot more cut and dry. And there were some vendors that like would almost shut down just to buy stuff, because a lot of folks go there just to buy. I heard someone discussing it the other day, just having the table so that you can buy stuff. And that works at a lot of shows, not just national, but having a space where you can buy stuff is important. But I felt like even those, like I'd walk up to a booth and there'd be 2 or 3 people working it, and they're all kind of looking at somebody's collection that they brought in a backpack, and then I can't really see anything. Like there's nothing I can see, as a buyer. So I feel like it was just crowded. Is the point there. I think a lot of people wanted to come out to it, and unfortunately, when you've got that many people, like there's only so much that people can do. That being said, it's still the museum of everything great. So, I mean, from the aspect of paying for a ticket and being able to walk around and see your dream cards, see those, in my case, the Jordan and the Kobe autograph, crazy exquisite patches. In other people's cases, the PMGs that you never get to see in person. Like those, whatever it is that your grail card or your absolute dream, or your even just misunderstanding of like what's a linchpin card? Why do I care about this? What makes it special? And then you hold it up to the light and go, oh my God, it's got holes throughout the whole thing, or the platinum portraits like that. Like experiencing these things in person it changes the way that you really get to understand the art, behind the card and the appreciation of a lot of that stuff.
Kate, you said that about the precious metal gems too, right? Like when you see them in person, the design, they feel different. So you're absolutely right. And I think memorabilia too. Like you have probably my 3 favorite players of all time on your wall: Iverson, Jordan, Kobe.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Magic Johnson.
It's Kobe, Johnson, actually. Yeah. I should have a Kobe. I don't have a Kobe jersey. I should.
But the memorabilia was cool. Like I loved. I've said this.
Not getting cheaper. Not getting any cheaper.
I know. I gotta get one. I gotta get one. If anyone's got one, yeah. Absolutely. No, it's true.
I'm telling everybody who listens to this to buy cards with pieces of them in it, because they're disappearing soon too. I've been giving that play for quite a few times.
It's funny. I don't have it right here, but when you mentioned on one of the episodes back when about that, I have photographic memory. So I was literally sitting at a DeBella's Subs, which is a great sub place in the Northeast, eating a sub, and you mentioned the Beam Team version of the jersey card. I have that one, and I was like, right on. Cool. That's like my favorite one. And so as I
didn't even know it existed. I went down a Kobe rabbit hole there for a little while. And Andrew, you can pull one up. It's a Beam Team Kobe with a piece of his jersey in it. So it's like it's a cool gateway thing, right? It's like a segue back to the old 90s Beam Team look where Kobe didn't have one, because it's like the 92 Stadium Club Beam Team design. But it's a Kobe card that's like a throwback to that Beam Team with a piece, like a relic piece of his jersey.
Yeah, right in the center and the bottom.
I don't own one, but I saw that and I'm like, that fits right into that.
Yes, that's it. That's the one.
There it is.
Yep. So I have one of those. I should have grabbed that ahead of time. It's not in the room. I have a lot of cards in the room here, but mostly lower end. I have like a couple of like exquisites that are not low. Like I got a Carmelo Anthony sitting here, limited logos and stuff like that. Because these people were asking me about these recently, like the limited logos. This is the kind of stuff that I go to national to see, because you just don't see this at a local show. And these are the cards that I remember when they first came out. That the fact that they combined those things that I love so much, the on-card autograph was dating back to 1996 Skybox Autographics. That was my passion set in the 90s. I got halfway there in the 90s and I finished the set 15 years later. And so I actually made that whole set finally, but on-card autographs that came out of the pack, amazing. And then actual game-used patches, not just jersey pieces, but patches on these cards. And I love the look of the limited logos. 2006-07 was my favorite year because it looked like almost like an award that they strapped on right there. And then you've got one of the biggest patches they did in any year. Right there.
It's a beautiful design. You could tell someone took care in putting that card together.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'll give you guys, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot of, and I've never said it to Upper Deck, and I know folks, probably listening to this, maybe that work at Upper Deck, this is, food for thought. The basketball card guy has let you know his thought on this, and I'm not sure why they haven't done it. But if you take a look at this card, there is no NBA logo or property here. They've cropped out unintentionally. I don't think they did it intentionally, but just by the card design that Upper Deck had, you can't see the Lakers logo. You can't see any of that on this card on the front. Now the back, they have the Lakers logo on the top, but removing that piece, just looking at the front of a Exquisite collection, why didn't they continue to make this? Leaf puts out cards. Right? I mean, Brian Gray gets it. They put out cards that have a patch piece, and they usually just take off the Lakers. Like they just Photoshop out the piece of the jersey with the Lakers in it. Why doesn't Upper Deck put out cards, and maybe they can't say that they're game used anymore in an NBA game, but just put out cards that look that nice? Because the design, like you said, Andrew. Oh, they will. Yeah, they should. They should.
No, so a little like it's not. You might already know this, right? Yeah. Because you might look at sell sheets. You're the basketball card guys. So you probably do, but
the metal
I'm
stuff?
definitely gonna make sure I get it. But Upper Deck is coming out with metal, but still the Upper Deck sell sheet. They have precious metal gems coming out in November. Upper Deck's bringing it back because they own the property on it now. It's not going to be a licensed card.
Well, they've owned the property on it for years. They bought out the Fleer properties years ago, and they were using that. They did the retro products for a while. Fleer retro.
Marvel has those.
But why haven't they done this? Why hasn't this happened yet? Because this is what people love, and they could do it with Jordan. That's the crazy part.
I think you're probably right about the game used, the NBA game used portion of it, and they probably don't want to. I don't want to say dumb down, but they don't want to dumb down or water down that brand. Like they don't want to bring that back and do it half-ass. You know what I mean?
Well, so that's funny that you say that because they brought out the Exquisite shoe cards with Jordan. And Andrew, I don't know if you can find this online right now, but if you look up, I think they're called Signature Kicks Michael Jordan Exquisite. You're going to want a picture of the back of the card because that's the part that's going to blow you away. They did these beautiful shoe cards, big patch, similar to this Exquisite, on-card autograph from Michael Jordan. And on the back, there you go. Take a look at the back of the card. See, $17,000. If they even show you the back, you're going to want to zoom in and you're going to want to read the back.
Look how thick that card is.
It's gigantic. But guys, this is not just not game worn. It's not worn. It's not anything. When we were talking about how crazy it was this year for Panini to do what they're doing.
Foot Locker. They went into Foot Locker board.
Read what it says.
Can I read it real quick? The piece of the shoe is from the shoe brand typically worn by Michael Jordan, and the autograph was signed in the presence of an Upper Deck representative.
They can't even say Nike. They can't even say Nike. It's a shoe brand typically worn by Jordan, right? So they could go to a Salvation Army and get a Nike shoe, or I don't know, maybe he wears some other kind of shoe on the weekends. He has loafers. I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's unbelievable. So to your point, Cage, like that's what I thought too originally. That's why they wouldn't have done this, but they went and did that.
They did it. Yeah,
they did that, and it blows me away.
This is from a 2-liter soda that Cage typically drinks.
Typically,
yeah, right. Typically, right. That word typically was unbelievable to me. And they actually write there, the word Nike is on that card. If you go to the very bottom of the card, they'll say that it's not endorsed by like the NBA or Nike or something like that. Like, I think the word Nike actually appears on the card, but in the very, very, very bottom. Like not affiliated with.
Sure that it's not Nike, right?
We're not saying it's Nike, but it's in the very tiny print at the bottom.
Here it is. This card is not affiliated, sponsored, endorsed, or made by Nike. Upper Deck does not represent or warrant that Michael Jordan or Nike are affiliates, sponsors, or endorsers of each other or Upper Deck.
Isn't that crazy?
Well,
I mean, now that aside, that card is gorgeous. I mean, you look at, again, the design aspects. It's thick as, I mean, that card's a brick. I mean, you could use it to hold up like a card. The thing is so thick. I mean, I don't know what you do with it, but it's like a bar of soap. But I mean, but it's got such a beautiful patch. The notion behind it was great. But yeah, that execution just really, really sad in the end there.
Not a very flattering picture of Jordan on the back either. Here in his polo, in his golf.
Right. Again, I think Leaf has made some better choices there because, you know, Leaf is still getting some. They're sourcing photographs of people wearing the jerseys. They're just photoshopping out the logos that they're not allowed to show. I think there's a lot of smarts in that. But when you've got two guys, here's like the Carmelo Anthony one that I have here. I mean, again, you don't see his jersey at all. So why didn't they continue to make these in this fashion? You know, they do things so beautifully, both Upper Deck and Fleer, the technology. And I think a lot of people reminisce with that. Yeah.
I mean, we have so many different directions we could go. Like, you know, with Fleer and Upper Deck and all these buyouts, we could talk Fanatics. You brought something else up that I really wanted to talk about is you love the hobby so much. This isn't your primary source of income, and that gives you a lot of freedom. I'm curious, you know, maybe this is a good place to, if you have a few minutes to talk about.
Yeah.
There's so many people at the show. A lot of people entered the hobby, but this kind of was their primary source of income. You're a business guy through and through. What would you recommend to those people that were hoping to profit off of the hobby and some of those doors were closed in the last year?
I mean, I think it comes back to the core. And I feel this way a lot when I hear, and I heard some people discussing, you know, the process of flipping cards and how that's a few people discussing flipping cards and grading them and flipping them across the last year. The thing about anytime you do a practice in which you're making that kind of money that quickly, you have to pretty much figure it's not going to last forever, right? And I think everyone that mentioned that understood that. Some people have moved on, you know, that kind of thing. The thing that folks don't think about all the time is if you do something like that, if you knowingly buy a card for $5, send it out to get it graded, comes back, you now make $200 on it. The person that bought it for $200, now the card dropped to $50, and they're stuck with it at $50. The thing that you have to think about next is the fact that that person has a bad taste in their mouth about you. They bought it from you. And so even though you got in, it was a great game, it seemed like you were printing money, it was fast cash, those people now have some sort of distrust in either the process as a whole, which maybe takes them away from the whole industry, which a lot of folks I know that were investing in some of the rookie cards left. But the folks that were just in it because they thought it would be fun and an investment, who I don't want to say got taken, but they did effectively in terms of money there, put a lot of money in at the height. They listened to, you know, podcasts and investment advice and all stuff that said, you know, buy this, it's so hot, get it while it's hot. And then the rug was ripped out from underneath them. Those people they're going to have an inherent distrust for the people that they got that from. So as a business operator, and again, it helps that I'm hobby first, but I take pride in the fact that when I'm selling something to someone, I price it in the way I feel like it should be priced. You know, so some of the stuff that I sell on my site and some of the stuff that I sell on Instagram or on Loop or on whatnot, I work with a lot of platforms at this point. Some of it goes for lower than the market. Some of it goes for a little bit higher than the eBay market if we're looking at just straight eBay things. But I try and price things there where I feel like, look, 3 to 4 months from now, that person is going to see return anyway, regardless of where that was now. You know, if I'm pricing it a little bit less than the market, it means that I'm thinking, you know what, the price is probably going to come down. And so I'm just getting ahead of that. So the 3 or 4 months from now, that person will come back and go, hey, look, I bought it for 100. It's only 80 now, but I only paid 75. So thank you for making it a reasonable price when everyone else was raising theirs. And at the same token, if I see something going up, I might price it a little bit higher, knowing that it's on the rise there. So I think the advice I would give to business owners is, you know, it's something that you guys mentioned in another episode too. I know Gary Vee has said it too, is stick with the things you know. But I would extend that to say, stick with the things you know so that you can price them appropriately. You don't have to go with market pricing on everything. You don't have to just say, oh, whatever the latest eBay comp is, I'll sell at. I think that's ignorant, because there are a lot of exceptions to that rule that you can look in, and someone just made a comp and never paid for it, or someone posted something just to create a low comp on something. There are a lot of ways you can manipulate that. Yep. So I think if you understand what you have and you're honest about it, just very straightforward with people, I think you can price things accordingly and have them come back over time again and again. And the folks that buy from me, like, they're customers, but I really treat them much more as friends and hobbyists, in that I'm out there trying to find stuff to hook them up with, things that I know that'll make their collections, things that I know that they're going to be just really satisfied with in the long term, you know, and I think that's the core difference. So if you're going at it as a business, yes, your objective is to make money. But if you're making money only today and you're myopic about it, and you say, I don't just care about making $1 today and I'll figure out how to make $1 tomorrow, well, then you're going to be changing your business a lot all the time. And eventually you burn a lot of bridges. You don't get that return customer. You don't get those people coming back. So that's that's the piece I would add in.
I want to put a smile on Cage's face. And I think this story, because you went here. So you said you love selling cards that make people's collections, right? So we wanted to save this till the end, but this is a good place to put it, to hear this story, because I don't know if you heard it, Cage. So
before you jump into a story, I just want to give John a little credit. What he just said, it's huge. It's very important, because there are a lot of new entrants into the hobby. And it doesn't just apply to people selling stuff. It applies to anybody coming. It applies to us. It applies to content creators. It applies to people, you know, putting your page out there. It applies to, you know, folks who talk about, like, leaving meat on the bone, you know, and making sure there's value in there for everybody. It doesn't have to be the last eBay comp. You know, use your own brain in what you know, right? And I got to give John a lot of credit, man, because, you know, we had him on last time when we talked about his April Fool stuff. But one of the things he mentioned, and, you know, it's important to just, you know, for everybody listening who's involved in the hobby, the industry, whatever the hell you want to call it, don't just do it. Do it, you know, full. Do it and make sure it has value, right? If John puts content out there, he's only putting the best content out there. He's putting content out there that's valuable. They would tell the story about the card, but then we can talk about some of the more recent videos that John's put out there as well. Yeah. And you know, just put it out there because, hey, I'm looking to make a name for myself, and whatever, come what may, you know, I'll build up a following and I'll make some money off of it. It's more of, you know, I think that the people out there will find value in this. I think it's a valuable piece. It's worth my time, and therefore it's worth their time, right? Don't do it half-assed. Do it all. Do it full, and do it so that, you know, people are going to find value in it. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to run through this hobby. A lot of ways to run through content and you know, influencers and you name it. We had a bunch of them on in these 10 for 10 segments. And I just want to say thanks, because that last couple of minutes, I mean, it really is, it's an important thing, right? It's why when I tell Ian, hey, sell these cards to the kids, yeah, I know you want to get $100 for that card, but why don't you sell it to him for 75? Yep. He leaves happy. And the next thing you know, he brings 3 friends back to the table, and you're selling more cards because of it, right? It's a good lesson. It doesn't just apply to cards. It applies, you know, a lot further in the hobby. And I hope, and guys, let us know if we're not doing a good job. I hope you think we're doing a good job of that.
You are.
You know,
I think you are.
Bringing value to you guys as well. So, and let us know, you know, if we run afoul of that, guys. You got to keep us honest. That's what LukaNation's good with, man. Yeah. You know, we post some stuff out there. We get some abuse.
I mean, Kate, everyone you met at the show that recognized you, you had a slab ready for them for free as a giveaway. So I think you're good.
I had a lot of Mookie Betts PSA 9s. I got back a lot of PSA 9 Mookie Betts. So, you know,
there's worse cards out there. There's worse cards out there. But guys, at the National, I needed to have a seat. First off, there needs to be more lounges. And
you were going around doing live for like 6 hours, man. I saw you at a booth that it was just crazy.
My legs were hurting, but I met a guy. I met an awesome guy. I think he's a baseball player.
No, just a man I met in the men's room.
No, it's at a lounge. His name's Mikey, and he shows me this awesome card. He shows me, and he starts telling me the stories. Like, I just got this graded at the PSA booth. Check this card out, and it's a crazy story. I was at like a small local show, and I got to give a shout out to John, the basketball card guy, because he really helped me out. John, could you tell that story? Because it's
sure
incredible.
So I do a show. So I do 2 to 3 shows a month. Saturdays and Sundays in the morning in Connecticut. And then when there's like New York shows again, like the White Plains show, I'll do that one. I wasn't able to do Hofstra this time, but like those are all shows kind of my local zone that I'll hit. Sometimes Massachusetts as well. There's a show that I go to pretty much all the time in Trumbull, Connecticut behind the Trinity Episcopal Church. Okay. It's exactly as large as it sounds, guys. This is like a tiny, tiny show. And during COVID, the church wouldn't even let us in. So we did the show in the parking lot. Okay. And so this show a few months ago was happening the same day as Dallas. And so I posted a series of stories on my Instagram story at Basketball Card Guy that day about mini Dallas, I called it. And about what the difference between real Dallas and mini Dallas is, just as a total spoof, you know, funny. Like, come on, like, you know, so like, how much is parking at Dallas versus mini Dallas? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how much parking costs at Dallas, but at mini Dallas, the parking's free and it's super convenient because once you park, you're in the show. You know, because you're in the parking lot. That's where it takes place. We literally, it was a 10-table show. We had people brought their own tables and tents. We set up in this parking lot. And so a friend of mine, actually, my friend John actually came with a T-shirt where he wrote Mini Dallas on it and showed up because he's seen the
I'm picturing like a Philadelphia Eagles tailgate with some cards attached.
Right, dude, it's hilarious. Dude, I mean, it was like the smallest thing that you can imagine. But look, it's Connecticut. We're an hour outside of New York City. There are people with some serious cards that come out to these things occasionally. You don't know what you're going to get. And so case in point, this show, a gentleman came up to me with a box of cards. I said, are you looking to sell? And he said, yeah, you know, I said trade or sell. He's like, I'd really, you know, probably rather sell. And I said, cool. So I look through and I pick out these 3 cards. And one of the 3 cards is a Kobe Bryant gold Prizm from 2016-17. So the last year he was in the league, gold Prizm. Now, I do not collect the gold Prizms. I know it's a lot of people's things. It's not my thing. I like refractors. I get that. You know, I get the Prizm thing from the refractors back in the day. I get all of that. But to me, like the gold isn't even my favorite look personally. I know I'm offending a lot of people that like gold stuff here, but like I think the silver actually looks nicer in my opinion. So anyway, this goes up to the table. This guy has it. And, you know, I'm thinking like, I know enough people that would like this card. I know enough Kobe collectors that have reached out to me recently. I know enough Prizm collectors that have reached out to me. Like, I'm sure I could hook somebody up with it. Yep. So the guy came to the table with a number in mind. We then went on eBay. He said he searched for comps. He couldn't find anything. I went on eBay and I'm like, yeah, and the internet in that parking lot is awful. That's the one thing that's really bad about the show. But I went on, it was like chugging away, trying to get something to happen. Couldn't find anything either. So we arrived at a price that for that card, which people will be floored with this, was low 4 figures for that card, which if you guys know the value of those cards, that's extremely low. I didn't, because again, this is not an area, again, it's you buy what you know and all that. You should sell what you know. All of that goes into play here. I had posted it. I had started reaching out to folks. I put it on my thing. I was hoping to get something back. Zero internet, like barely any internet there. So the picture went out. I didn't get any feedback. Meanwhile, this guy Mike comes up, who I know from the show. He's bought from me before. We've traded. I've seen him in local card shops before. I know his collection. He loves Prizm. He loves Kobe. And he's been looking for gold stuff. He walks up, sees this card, and I can see on his face he's in love. And so, you know, a normal vendor mentality there would be like, oh, I've got a customer for this one. You know, like I was like, oh my God, I see myself. I see my children. I see every collector in his face right now in awe. And I know his collection, and I know that this would just be the premier card. This could be the top of his collection. And so he comes up, he's like, is that yours? And I said, no, I'm buying it right now, you know, along with these other ones. He's like, oh man, I'd be so interested in that. And I said, you know what? And I literally turned to him, and it'll tell you the 2 words I said, hobby first. And I said, Mike, you should buy it. And he's like, are you sure? 3 times he asked me, are you sure? Because he knew the price. And he's like, really? And so he went off, and he was trying to get money into his Venmo. And I'm like, and the other guy's still waiting there, like for payment. And he's like going off. He called his bank because it was more than he had than they would authorize for the Venmo. And I was telling the guy that was selling it, I go, look, if he can't, I'll pay for it for him. Like, he should have this card, you know? A couple minutes later, he pays for it. All said and done. Great. Leaves. Thanks me. Makes a post on Instagram. Thanks me. It was just so nice. Saw all of that later in the day. I also saw later in the day a message from Spinatron who saw the card and immediately was like, that's a huge card. Is it available? And I said, no, I hooked somebody up with it.
Spinatron is kind of all-knowing, huh?
Oh, my God. Well, I mean, talk about, out of all the Kobe collectors out there, he's one of the foremost, for sure, if not the top, you know, like, and actually we were talking about PMGs earlier. I saw his PMG. It was the only Kobe PMG I've ever held at the Hall of Fame induction, at Kobe's Hall of Fame induction. Ken was there selling it. Well, he wasn't selling it there, but it had it on display for the sale that was going on. So I got to see that card right up front, which was amazing. So Spinatron reaches out and says, you know, it's an incredible card. Let me know if he's interested in selling it. I said, well, we weren't even sure what it was worth. And he shoots me a image from Golden Auctions of one that sold. It was a 9.5 that sold for $143,000. And I immediately went, oh my God. Because, I mean, we're talking what was paid for this card is such a fraction. Like, I started feeling bad for the guy, because if I had known that, I never would have structured a deal in which that guy wasn't getting more. But again, like, knowing what you have, right? So I immediately called Mike, and this is where everyone's like, oh, and you told him he's got to give you a percentage. Like, no, not at all. I called him to let him know, don't take an offer on this. If someone offers you what you think is a lot of money for that card, just put the brakes on, because it was the same situation that I've been in with my Jordan limited logos. It's this notion that I don't have a lot of money into my limited logos, but it's worth a lot of money now. And I could sell it now and make a lot of money off of it, but then I would no longer have the card. And what I said to Mike is, you're in a club now, a 6-figure card club. You own a 6-figure card that you paid 4 figures for. Not a lot of people can be in that club with such a cheap ticket. So the minute you sell it, you get the money. That's great. And if you need to buy a house or something, go for it. Like, do it. Like, if it's like life altering, please. Like, at the end of the day, it's a piece of cardboard. There are other things in life that are more valuable. I know that's going to tick some people off too, but it's true. There are things that you need to do in life. And if buying a house is something that you want to do, that's amazing. But until then, you're in this club. You have an amazing piece that only 9 other people in the world have. The card looked beautiful. I'm not a grader. I don't grade. You guys know that. But I looked at the card. I'm like, wow, it's dead centered. I don't see anything wrong with it. Right. You know, I said, to me, it looks mint. You know, like, so he took it to the National. He brought it in, and as Andrew alluded to earlier, it became one of the top 100 cards graded at the National, as listed out by Nat, and it got a PSA 10. So that card is probably $250,000, I would have to guess, in valuation at this point. An amazing, amazing piece. And I, again, congratulated him on that, you know. And I think that's the core difference here. Like, it's just, you know, how many people ask me over and over again, do you ever regret selling something? Do you ever regret this, that, or the other thing? And it's like, no. Like, you make the decision that's right at the time. And my only hope, and I've said this to Mike, is my only hope is that he keeps it, you know, and that someday you sell everything. So, you know, these cards will probably outlive us, right? So someday they're going to get sold or moved into somebody else's collection. But my hope is that he gets a long time of enjoyment out of it, because what an incredible piece to have. And it was just my pleasure to be able to hook it up for somebody that was so great that I had seen at so many shows.
You know what my hope is?
What's that?
My hope is that the guy who sold it to you guys shows up at the next show and Mike hooks him up.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's got to be a huge amount of money or anything like that, but, you know, find out what the guy collects, you know, buy him a card, give him a trade.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't know, buy him a drink, you know, do something. But
do something.
You know, everybody did well on that deal. You know, I'd hate to think, you know, that guy, look, here's the thing. It happens in our hobby. It happens in all businesses, right? I mean, you have to know what you're buying, and there was no maliciousness going on here. You guys have no internet. Nobody knew what the thing was worth at the time. The guy was really happy. I'm sure he was into it for less. Maybe even pulled it out of a pack, and he was thrilled to get, you know, $2, $3, $4, whatever $1,000 it was that was paid for the card. He probably went home and was like, "This is huge money for me. That's great." You know, I mean, and obviously the card's worth what it's worth, partially because of the grade that it got, which, you know, that happens all the time. You know, people multiply their stuff. I mean, Mike was the one who took it to the National, got it graded, and obviously added value to it by doing that. But I'd love it if that guy shows up again. You're sitting around. It's like, all right, you know what? Look, Mike may have another piece of his collection. Like, I can sell you this at a discount, or let's trade, or tell me who you like, and let's figure out a way to get, maybe he's a Jordan guy, whatever it is. Like, I'd love to have that little, postscript on the story, which would be kind of cool.
I was just at that show. It was this last Saturday. They did another one. I didn't see him there. He's the only time I've seen this guy at that show ever, was that one show. But yeah, I don't have any contact info for him. Otherwise, I'd reach out. I think Mike's certainly got his Venmo. I don't know. I don't think you can message through there though. He could just send him some money with a note. Though.
You could send him $1 with a message.
Yeah, just by the way, thanks again. But yeah,
the common thread for me, and we talk about this all the time, is the hobby's so small, right? It's such a small world, and I think what was big that you mentioned subtly was that you had good encounters with Mikey before.
Yes,
and that right, like that little kind of nuance, like I have a good feeling about this kid versus. Wow, this guy, I've had an interaction with him. I don't have a good vibe, right? It's
right.
And I think that led to the whole deal going down as well, because this card might not even be graded. A lot of people, I don't know, maybe the two people that are listening that don't know John, he's not a card grader. He buys cards graded, but he doesn't grade them. So just a little subtle thing of you having good interactions with Mike before had this domino effect. So
totally. Yeah. It's the good vibe thing, and I always say that, like, I always like working with good people. I say that a lot, and all the different folks throughout the industry I work with, in different ways. And same with hooking up people with cards and trades and things like that. It's just, you get a good instinct about people. You want to do more, but that's human nature, that's human nature. And that comes back to what I was saying earlier about, about selling certain things and margins and prices and all that kind of stuff. That goes into that too. It's a two-way street. It's one thing when the market is growing continuously, which is what we were experiencing in the last year. And what I kept telling people, I'm like, this isn't how it normally goes, guys. Markets go up and down. We're just on this upswing. It's one thing there that you could literally blindly, like a few months ago, just buy any cards at market rate and then sell them for more a couple of months later because everything was going up. So no one could do any wrong. But now that the market has, kind of not fully corrected, but there's things that have gone back now, they're going to be winners and losers. And so if you care about the people that you do deals with, which I do, you want to make sure that they're winners, that you're all winners. And what Cage said there, too, like a lot of winners in this whole thing, and he was a winner too, because he was looking to get this particular price. And I said, I think it's reasonable based on what we could see, and the information that he had provided me with. So I always say, there was someone that came to me the other day that said, you shouldn't do a deal unless you both feel uncomfortable. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not how I look at that at all. He was like, the pricing that you get at, like if you want this card and you want to pay $400 and I think you should pay $600, we go to $500. So we're both uncomfortable with it. I'm like, yeah, that's not how I operate. I just say, we don't do a deal. You want $600. I want to pay $400. We don't have a deal. I'll find somebody else that has the same card that wants to sell it for $400 and we have a deal, and you'll find somebody else that wants to buy it for $600 and you'll have a deal and everyone's happy. Like,
I like the little bit of pain. It's a mediation thing, right? It's like if we both walk away a little bit unhappy.
I don't feel like you need to do that though. Deal. Like I feel like
John, you know what the best part of your story is, and it's really funny, man, because you're a great ambassador for the hobby and for what we're doing, and the story is just a great example of it, right? It's 98 out of 100 people tell that story, and there's a sentence in the story like, I can't believe I had that card in my hands. I was going to own that card. I had the opportunity to buy that for $3,000, and now it's on the PSA website. Nat's top 100. It's a PSA 10. I knew it was going to grade at least a 9 or a 10. Spinatron reached out. Like, it was totally mine. It was in my hands. And it's one of the biggest regrets that I have. Like, I should have held onto that card, and I could have turned $3,000 into $300,000. And, and I really would have loved to have done that. But that's literally 98, myself included. I would have like, oh my God, how I should have bought the CryptoPunk, or how did I not buy this? How did I not do this? And it's funny you did not say it, right? Because that's you. You were just like, look, I saw this card.
It was the right decision.
And I said, you know what? He's a Kobe guy. He's a Prizm guy. I know this is going to be a centerpiece of his collection. So you know what? I'm moving it to the side. And what's amazing about it is, Andrew's much more philosophical about stuff, right? He's much more, zen, and, he sits on cliffs and does the stuff like that. Like I'm fat and out of shape. I can't climb up a cliff and sit on it and do meditation, right? So, but he believes in the higher power. He believes in like all these things, right? He believes in all this great stuff. I tell him I'm the higher power. But whether you believe in it or you don't, right? And karma and the whole deal, I do believe kind of in that treat other people the way you'd want to be treated yourself, right? I do really believe that golden rule, that's something that kind of ties us all together, man. And just big kudos to you because, I think whether there's some cosmic interference or involvement in this, as Andrew's going to try to tell me, there's a reason why that guy with that stack of cards, with that Kobe in it, in the tiny Connecticut church show, came up to you with that card to buy and make sure that it got diverted into Mikey's hands, into his collection, into somebody who's a Kobe Prizm collector. It didn't go to the table next to you where somebody was looking to take it out of this guy's hands for $3,000 and then flip it next month for 10 or 20 or 50 or whatever it was going to be.
Right.
So believe in whatever you want to believe in, but I think it's kind of a cool story. And again, kudos to you for not having that little additional sentence of, oh man, I should have held it myself and I should have flipped it. I'm out $100,000 because, maybe for you, maybe, it's worth it. Your kids were there. They saw, hey, look what my dad did. Look at how he treats people in the hobby. Mikey's going to be in the hobby forever. He's going to bring 10 people into the hobby with this story. You're going to keep people in the hobby with the story. And it counterbalances exactly what you talked about in the beginning, which is, when you have that rocket ship, we talked about this with Lou, we talked about this with the card ladder guys, that prices go up, right? With whether it's the Michael Jordan, the Kobe, the LeBron, those charts that we looked at, right? They go up. Somebody's buying it here, right? It would be great if we all just kind of bought and sold over that whole deal. But that's not the way life works. It's definitely not the way it's worked the last couple of years. We've all seen that spike. But the people who are buying it when it spiked up, they're now writing it down, and they're going to have to hold it on the way up. They got a bad taste in their mouth, right? But from the person who sold it to them that high, or the person who pumped it up that high, right? You're doing your part to kind of counter that. So thanks, because it'll keep people in the hobby.
Absolutely, and I think it comes back to also, and the Cage, this too. It comes back to the passion of being in it so long too. I think it's not just age and years, but it's age and involvement. With it, that it doesn't matter what age you are, but if you can go back to anything that you enjoyed as a kid, it becomes almost sacrilegious to ruin it, And so when you see things that are happening like that, I remember going to tables at White Plains at the county center where people are trying to rip me off left and right, with stuff that I had as a kid in my box. So it's stuff like that. I just feel like, I've enjoyed it as a hobby. It's been my escape from the real world, so to speak, and it's great, and I just like spreading it. And when you see somebody that just it's just such a perfect hit. Like you said, like it just aligned. There was the perfect timing. So why not have it happen? So
John, so you listened to our takes on Fanatics in the previous 10 for 10s, PWCC, eBay, all the other stuff. August was kind of a crazy month in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
What are your takes on some of the events that happened in the last month?
I think the Fanatics thing is obviously the most impactful in the long term. And I'm a big wait and see guy. Like I stood back. It was actually Kyle at Wax Museum Podcast had posted a thing on his story that I then shared because I thought it was brilliant. And I had been in news media for years, so it really rang true to me. It was this notion of let's not jump on something before we have all the facts. And people were just like, if you went on Clubhouse, I mean, it was like, what are we even talking about? Like 2 sentences have come out in a tweet and people are like, they've written a book on what's going to happen in the future. Like it's crazy and it's fine. Look, it's human nature to want to speculate and come up with a million different things that could happen. And I get it. And it's entertaining, but I think a lot of people were kind of jumping in without even understanding. My worry up front and my worry remains, and look, there's 4 years before it affects basketball. We'll see what happens in baseball first, which I think is good for basketball because we won't have the same kind of, we'll know what's coming,
Remember, he's the basketball guy. So you baseball guinea pigs, you get the problems. He'll stand by and watch.
I'll stand over here and
ugly stuff.
See what happens. But But I am worried about. I'm worried about distribution more so than anything else. I think if you look at Fanatics as a company, if you look at their CEO and even some of the stuff that he said in the past, and I mean, he owns Fanatics and he owned Rue La La, and they basically peeled off. They were selling the company back when, or his companies, and they peeled off a bunch of brand properties that people didn't want, and that they grew into these insane things. My worry is somebody that's used to being the center of it all and being able to control it all, I think is going to have a challenging time with distribution and supporting the things that already exist. It's not to say in 3 to 4 years that they can't figure it out. I mean, clearly, they can. There's money there. But I'm of the mindset when they looked at themselves as competing with Amazon and like everything that's the Amazon mentality. I don't see Amazon. I see Amazon doing one thing that I think they're going to do. I see Amazon encouraging individual sellers from across the country to move their small to medium-sized businesses to Amazon. Let Amazon be your backbone to sell. I think Fanatics is going to do that. If I had to predict, that's where I would go if I were them. I would create, call them marketplaces or call them, just their general marketplace. Be the spot where you go. I mean, Fanatics, like this guy had sold all of his stuff to eBay, right? That was what it was back in the day. And they kept Fanatics and Rue La La and these other companies. Yep. eBay wasn't interested in them. I mean, talk about kicking yourself in the right now when you think about it. But I think that's what they might be going towards, is becoming the online backbone for like card stores in order to keep the card stores open. A card store right now, you talk to most of them, most of their online backbones is eBay. I mean, which again is what I see. The irony of this is the outfit that would have been sold to eBay, but they didn't want it, is now the one that's going to compete against them for a lot of these individual stores, I think. That being said, like the LCS is really that the local card store is really where I feel like is going to be most impacted. I go to card stores. I go to local card stores in order to pick up singles. That's my spot. Like that's what I do. But the lifeblood of a local card store, the predictable purchasing, is around wax. And if Fanatics controls all of the wax, and if Fanatics, unlike Panini, has a website that doesn't crash when people try and buy stuff, they have the power to sell direct to consumer unlike we've ever seen before. I'd been saying for years that I thought that Panini should be selling direct to consumer all along, that they should be selling more of the wax direct. But they didn't have the wherewithal. Their website crashes all the time. Anytime they release something, they're doing the blockchains, like all these crap. Like how can't you get this stuff online? Fanatics doesn't have that issue, and so I feel like for somebody who's built their business around being online, my greatest concern about it is that they're going to want it all online. That they're going to want all of it. That online stuff is theirs. There may even be restrictions. When you become a retailer of something, you can say, look, we'll sell it to you, local card shop, but you're not allowed to sell it online. You're not allowed to put this product on eBay, that you can only sell it physically in your store, which would change the landscape for a lot of these stores. Most of these stores, you talk to them these days, they're doing most of their business online, even though they have a physical store. So I think it changes a lot in those zones. And, again, it comes back to my childhood. It comes, and Cage could talk to this too, like it's not to say that it has to be that way in the future, but the way I learned about this industry, the way that I got packs, the way that was through the card stores, through passionate people selling cards. And so while one of your guests the other day was saying it doesn't matter, you have to accept change. Things are about to change and you just have to go along with it. If Ryan Card Collector 2 can't handle it, like I said something about that, like, yes, but Ryan Card Collector 2 is passionate about this. So when you buy a pack of cards in his store, you're getting the passion behind it. He's able to tell you what you got. He's able to walk you through it. You buy it from somebody online on fanatics.com, you're not getting that. You got to call up phone support. Phone support gonna be like, oh, what? Let's see, let's go live. You're like, it's not there.
It's a step beyond that, right? Because of that passion, you might be buying something you didn't expect to buy when you go into that store, right? You're online, you're looking for something, you buy it, right? As a kid, I went into a card store and I was looking for a 1992 Upper Deck basketball to buy Shaq. And the guy behind the counter is like, do you watch hockey? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, there's the Shaq in hockey this year. Timu Solane. He's going to be great. You should buy some Upper Deck. He's in these. Look at the Beckett. Here's what it's selling for. And I actually started watching a little bit of hockey. Roman Hammerlick and like all these guys. And I'm like, what the heck? I hockey. I watched hockey for a little while in the 90s because I was buying the cards and they convinced me to buy Upper Deck hockey cards. And, mean, I didn't know who Scott Erickson was, but in 1991 Upper Deck, that was like the guy to get a pitcher for the Twins. And I'm like, all right, I'll buy some packs. I'll try to look for that guy, So, that is missing if you're just going on eBay and typing in the search term for the one thing you're looking for. Nobody's there. There is no, eBay, e-boy, like Wreck-It Ralph movie, who's going to say, hey, why don't you try this one instead? So I get exactly what you're saying. The flip side, though, John, is I believe the hobby has boomed because it's moved away from that mom and pop mentality of get in there. We don't need it all. I don't want it all gone, right?
I agree.
But you walk into a White Plains show and you got the crusty old guys who are still saying grading's never going to work. Buy the card, not the holder. They're in one corner with their vintage, binders. And then you got the rest of the show, which is, sitting there. I mean, you were at the National. Blowout was there, right? And Steel City and David Adams. They basically have booths of just cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
I mean, no cards, no singles, just cardboard box Panini. This is this. Buy this case. Here it is, a price tag, $70,000 for this cardboard box. Right?
People already know. Yeah. So that's a question. It's for me, it's always, what is the next generation going to do? And some of the answer may be like, well, the next generation is online and they're going to learn about things online, and that's how they're going to, and they don't need
mind if I chime in
the local card store.
No,
mind
you're
if
not
I chime in, and I'm curious what you guys think.
Chime in.
So you guys know I got into Panini. They call them Panini NFTs, but I think they need to really be called digital cards because they're not truly NFTs. And what I actually what I like about them, or rather what I noticed or observed, is when I first entered the hobby, I bought Zion Prizm base, and I sent those cards to PSA, and I either got 9s or 10s.
Yep.
And what that really did was, if we forget the grading, because actually the grade on that modern card is irrelevant, they created this artificial scarcity. You'd go to the population report and you'd see, oh, now my Zion is 1 of 15,000, so okay, I know how to price it accordingly.
There's a scarcity that got less scarce over time, which is the total opposite of what cards were in the past.
And you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how many are in the backlog. It's like this weird supply and demand game where you don't really know the supply at all, right? It's just constantly changing. With digital cards, we opened packs, and there was base cards were all out of $17.99, already pre-numbered. Silvers were out of 149, blue was out of 99, gold was out of 10, and there was a super fractor. So it was already like you open the cards with the grade. Really what the grading company does was a set supply, and now they became so much more liquid. You could trade them, you could move them.
Yep.
And for exquisite cards or for PMGs, of course you need grading. But for some of these more modern cards that you really want to have liquidity and you want to trade them depending if Bull has a good game or a bad game, to me, digital cards on a platform that works really well is a really nice value add.
I think so too. I mean, Fanatics already owns an NFT company, right? I mean, I looked it up the other day with Candy Digital. I wrote down, Candy. I mean, so I think they're already going in that zone. And when you hear about their chairman talking about the verticalization of an industry, is what he keeps talking about. They want to own the whole thing up and down. And they're in a unique position now with the licensing to do that. My thing to kind of cap off this topic, we continue to talk about it too, but like the one thing that I really feel about it in reflection of hearing a lot of the 10 for 10s throughout the week too, is that Fanatics has to do something from day one that wows collectors. I mean, absolutely wows. Because we have a culture that complains about everything right now in this industry. You know, I mean, just Cage Chicken's at everything.
It's true. You're 100% right.
And if they don't come out,
Andrew, because I mean, literally this thing in that
it has to be better than this.
It's got to be better, 100%. They're gonna get one shot to do it. Because if it's not after owning all the licenses and all the brands and all the things they're doing, they're getting one shot
access to the athletes too, which is huge.
Such complainers. Andrew was complaining the week before about Panini not doing it right, Panini being lazy, no quality control. You know that Fanatics comes out and he's like, Fanatics is gonna be a monopoly. I'm like, wait, what do you want? You know, Panini is out, and I'm using Andrew.
I want more companies, not less, is what I want. I don't like monopolies, and just because Panini, it's like Panini was doing it terribly, so I want a monopoly.
Give somebody else.
Those are my only two options.
But what John is saying is they'll get their chance, and they better not blow it.
They're going to have one chance up front, and they're going to have all their ducks in a row, and it's going to be they have to wow. I mean, they have to wow. And look, they've got a nice runway now to do it, right? They got a few years before it's going to kick in. They've got this chance to hire other companies, bring them in. But I don't even know, like, I know a lot of people have been talking about them, you know, bringing in Topps or Upper Deck or, you know, like, or Leaf and doing that. I don't know that that's necessarily the best path. I think that makes us feel more comfortable because it's what we're used to. But again, I don't think it gets them to wowing us. I don't think it gets them to going to the point of going beyond it just by getting that. I think they may fall back and just go, okay, we released not only Prizm, but Chrome and Bowman as well this year. Like, okay, but that's not like, what did you do to make it even better? Why are you guys because you're the only ones. You've made yourselves, you put yourself in that spot where you're the only ones.
So you don't want day one, you don't want them to release a basketball Prizm.
No, I heard that.
You don't like my
I
idea.
like that. I like
Prizm.
it. I like it.
Just go in Prizm and they're good.
Yeah. I mean, but that they literally have to do something that's going to knock all of our socks off. Now, not talked about as much in all of this, which I do think is a positive on this, is the players and the associations. They have equity in this now.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. Like the fact, and I think that will actually incentivize players to want to be involved more.
Yep.
You know, I don't know, maybe sign your cards.
Do you really think that's the case? Like how much equity
I don't know how much
individual player is going to get, right? It's one thing to say there's equity in there, but how much are they actually going to get? And let me loop in because it's one of those things people have brought up, and I've never really nailed it down because we're not going to know the details. But I can tell you, I remember when the UFC came out and championed the Reebok deal for folks, and they're like, "What a great deal this is! We have a sponsor. Our guys don't have to scrape together sponsorships now. They're not going to be sponsored by Dude Wipes." And then, they're not going to be sponsored by, whatever, Al's, Earl Shive's paint company or whatever it is. I mean, John, you remember what that
is. Can I tell LukaNation a fun fact of how Cage Lawyer started?
Sure, if you like. Go for it.
So Cage was a lawyer for UFC fighters before that Reebok deal. And the Dude Wipes, the small companies, if they didn't pay or if they reneged on the sponsorship, the big dog right here would go after them. That was
we try to help them. We try to help them, and either negotiate out of their contracts.
Wait, the UFC guys didn't take care of that themselves? See, that seems like something they should be able to take care of.
You would think, right? You need somebody fighting for them. You never fight alone. There might be a trademark for that. Never fight alone. I might own it. But here's the thing, right? So when Reebok came, I remember them championing. You can Google it. Like, this is great for the fighters. There's going to be revenue sharing. They're not going to have to put, Joe's Body Shop on their pant leg now when they're fighting in order to earn money. But here's the thing, right? The Reebok deal didn't allow them to put Joe's Body Shop on their shorts anymore. They can only put Reebok, and maybe Monster Energy was on there a little bit here and there. They couldn't do it on their fight gear, so they eliminated that sponsorship. And the way that it was structured and tiered was the top 10 in every weight class, the top 10 guys, like the Connors and the big guys in the weight classes, they got the lion's share of the money. And the fledgling fighters, or the people trying to build their way up the rankings, were getting a minimal amount of money. For them, believe it or not, it was actually a pay cut. Some of these people were getting sponsorship money that was more than they were getting to show up for the fights. Even if it was 10 grand, 20 grand, whatever it was, that was a cool thing. They could then sell their fight gear, their shorts, to the sponsor who hangs it on the wall and says, "I sponsored this fighter," the whole deal. So,
right.
So the whole equity
That's
thing,
interesting.
It sounds great, but we need to know how it's being distributed, because honestly, you think Miles Bridges is going to get enough money where he's like, oh, I don't care. I mean, you think
he keeps signing LaMelo balls, you know.
John, I love it, man. I'm like a volleyball player. I set it up for you, and you're spiking it down. I use him specifically for that reason. So, but the point is, I mean, yes, there's equity. The players getting equity. I'm sure it's all going to the Players Association, and it's going to be a fund that allows them to negotiate the better collective bargaining deals. Like, I don't think that's actually putting real dollars in the pockets of these players. And even if it is, these guys are making so much money anyway. But the whole equity thing, I mean, it's nice. It sounds good. It's a cherry on top of the sundae. But I really, as a collector, I really don't think that that's going to be the thing that gets them to sign their cards. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that if they got the stickers from Panini and it was like, I'm not doing this, I don't think they're going to do it now because they think $3.80 is coming their way the next, quarter because of what they get out of it.
Maybe not. I'm an optimist on that front too. I don't know. I feel like it's a nice piece to have them be in it. Like we always say, if you've got skin in the game, and I think it's also, even if it brings some of these athletes in to enjoying cards in some way, introducing them a little bit more to it, they see it as a giant industry, and I know firsthand there's a lot of athletes that are getting in investing in companies now as well, within our zone here because of that, that notion of they see, wow, there's high dollar amounts in these. Is more interesting. So maybe it brings them in, maybe it brings some interest. I always thought it was strange, like during the National at trade night, PJ Washington was there signing autographs. So Jimmy Kentucky Roadshow, along with Ryan, Card Collector 2, put on this great trade night, and they paid to have PJ Washington come in and sign autographs, for everyone for free. I brought in my kids came to this one event. It was the one thing we went to, it was my son that got the sweater card out of Hoops. Like where they had like the Christmas sweaters. PJ Washington had never seen that card before. He's like, what is this? Like they'd had throw on a sweater at some point and they took a picture of him in it. And it was just like, whatever, what is this for? Never seen the final card. So and he kind of lit up when he saw it. He's like, this is kind of neat. If it just even helps a little bit garner some interest from the subject of the cards, I think it would be awesome, because we all collect them and we like, it's almost like an assumption like, oh, they must know about cards and they must, because they're on them. And it's like, they have no idea.
Is this possible? So let's say like,
they're all buying NFTs now.
Zion's and it's like Zion's debut, right? He's going to keep that jersey. But let's say like Zion plays Ja Morant for the first time. And after the game, they always exchange jerseys, right?
Yep.
But now if they have vested interest, and I hear your point loud and clear, how much real vested interest do they have? But instead of, maybe trading those jerseys, what if they sent those jerseys or had a deal with Fanatics where we had a card that was game worn, first time Ja and Zion met on card auto? Like that to me adds a really cool appeal.
Yeah. It kind of already happened. I mean, doesn't Topps now, like if a game happens,
they don't do a good job of telling you about it.
A baseball, like a piece of the base from the game, goes into a card, a Topps now, whatever you call it, like Ohtani, the gamer hit his 40th home run and also, got a win or whatever, his 40th career win pitching. Like that next day you can get a piece of the base, a piece of the pitching rubber. Like it's already done. I don't think many people can. Maybe that's because it's baseball, but really gotta. But I think it's already done.
Andrew, I like the idea, the notion of that, like the historical. One of my favorite cards, I don't have one here right now, but one of my favorite cards out of basketball was a stat line card that they show you. You have a piece of the game worn jersey in it, and then they tell you the exact game it was worn and tell you the player's stats in that game. And it's always befuddled me as to why that isn't on every card, because no matter what the game worn jersey is, at the point at which one of these card companies gets it, they have the documentation of what game it was from. It's not hard. Like my gray stuff, I have Thomas Bryant game worn jerseys because I'm that guy. But
sorry,
his my mic is falling here. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So, but like even on something like that, they tell you the stats right on the certificate. Right. Like they tell you what he got in the game. So I don't understand why the card companies aren't putting those kinds of things on the cards more. It seems like an obvious choice, unless they're using the same jersey for every product, and they don't want to accentuate the fact that they only got one jersey of this guy and it's 2 years worth of product that they're taking to release it. I don't know.
You know who does that and actually has an effect? And this is, we always say this to our community. Whether you're, you invest a 10,000 or 1,000, just sign up for an account. Top Shot does that.
Yeah.
And it has an effect on the moments, The LeBron moment where he's dunking the tribute to Kobe. Just because of that game and that moment.
Amazing. Yeah. And that photograph became a huge card too. Yeah.
So, Cage, I mean, we talked about a ton of stuff. We try to keep these to an hour.
We're right at it.
Obviously, with someone like John, we could talk for 2 hours about a variety of topics. I mean, before this even started, Cage and John were talking about Ghostbusters. So
we were.
True, we were.
We could start a new show for LukaNation. So there's millions of stuff.
The 80s rabbit hole. Well, I'll ask John just this thing because he's a basketball guy, right? So Panini has been a major part of his life for the last decade. And before that, Topps was and Upper Deck was and all this other fun stuff, right? And, the question is one I'm going to ask you because of what you just said, which was you've listened to the Fanatics thing and people are talking about potentially buying Topps and buying Panini, and you don't think that should happen. You don't think it's going to happen. So just real quick, what do you think happens to Panini? And I'll split it up into 2 questions, right? Before and after. So legacy stuff and going forward, right? So what do you think happens to the cards that are in existence for the, let's call it 13, 14 years that Panini would have been making cards while they have the license? Like, do they become more valuable, less valuable? Do people love them? Do people hang on to them? Is there a reason why we should all be running for the exits on some of those now because of this? And then what do you think Panini does? No one's holding you to this, man, but you are the basketball card guy, so right. I trust your instincts with stuff like this. And it's always interesting to pick somebody like you's brain on this. What do you think happens? Do you think they go a Leaf route? Do you think they go what they're doing now with baseball? They put out Prizm products and that stuff with unlicensed and airbrushed and that kind of stuff. Do you think they move towards a digital thing? Do you think there's a way to carve out a digital license and it's still licensed even though it's not a card? Sort of like what Top Shot does or what they're doing now, with some of their digital stuff. So that's a long question. There's a lot of parts. It's back to school. Remember Thornton Mellon? I only have one question for you, Mr. Mellon, in 27 parts. Right?
Exactly.
The answer is
4. Yeah. So, first off, I wasn't saying that they wouldn't get bought up. I just don't think it's the best route because I don't think that they're gonna. When you talk to collectors and you hear people want innovation and they want new, then buying something that's been around for 70 years and expecting that out of it doesn't make sense for that. That being said, I think there's a place for that still. I mean, there's absolutely a place for that still, but you have to team that up with doing something totally new to really put it over the line. For the companies themselves, it's all a money question. And so I think what's going to happen is you're going to see leadership changes. I think you're going to see in the next year, if revenues go down because of this news and people thinking towards it, or they're not meeting expectations. So if they don't grow as much this year as they did last year, then people will start looking at it and want new leadership inside of Panini or one of these, or Topps, these organizations. And then at that point is when you're going to start to see major changes, big changes, whether it's an NFT kind of piece. They're going to have to find an area that they can carve out that isn't just in the near term. I've heard a lot of people talk about they're going to have their presses on 24/7. They're going to print as many cards as they can because that's all they can do now. But if it doesn't, if we go back to, having stockpiles of those cards and them getting returned and all the stuff that happened like back in the 80s and stuff, that's not going to do anything for them either. The revenues aren't going to be there. They're going to see stuff fall down in the next couple of years. It's weird that this is happening with this much notice. Think about that for a second. It isn't like someone just bought them out. Like normally, licensing's weird like that. Normally, if you got an announcement that a business bought up another business, you would assume that changes would happen immediately because now that business or would get folded or something. We've got like a good 4 years here where that there's a deadline where these companies that have been known for doing these things that they've done for so long can no longer do them the way they did them. And so you've got all this lead up in time for them to either innovate and come out with something else that they can get around having that licensing, like the Leaf way, you know, or going, you know, another route, and just making themselves as attractive as possible to be bought out. And I think that's, if I was putting on my financial hat, you know, the consulting cap kind of thing, I would be looking to make myself look as valuable as possible, because we've never seen the industry boom this much. The business boom has happened this year in response to last year's, you know, card sales boom. Now you see all these card businesses, but I think Fanatics is going to be, you know, more likely in line first to buy up things like Whatnot and Loop. Like the platforms, I'm selling on both of those platforms. I have since early on in their career. Loop, I was one of the first partners there. Those platforms are, you know, again, if we come back to the distribution of Fanatics, if they can control the only places you can buy stuff, then they need some other places you can buy stuff that mimic things that people like. So if they can buy up those marketplaces, and those two companies in the grand scheme of things cost nothing close to what, you know, one of these card companies cost. So I don't know, like it'll be interesting to see, but it's going to be an evolution in the next few years. It's not going to happen overnight, which is the craziest part of this. We're going to see an evolution or a de-evolution.
I mean, we'll know about it sooner than later, but what about legacy brands? I mean, if it's not being bought out, what about, like, you know, Topps flagship, right? I mean, is you know, one of the things you talk about is, you know, collectors want something new, something great, something that's going to knock your socks off. But I got to tell you, there's got to be a segment of collectors out there that wants to continue to collect that Topps rookie of everyone, because that's just what they've done forever. It's what I've done forever. You know what I mean? And if Fanatics is coming out with Frops, you know, Frops flagship or whatever they're going to call it, you know, am I going to buy Topps if it's not licensed? I don't know. Like, I don't buy
you may not.
Prizm baseball.
And it may kill the brand to do it without it, you know, like,
yeah.
And that's always the question. I'd be interested to see, like, my little prediction comes in two forms. One is this Exquisite piece that I shared. Like, what can they do that has the same kind of design that we love, but, you know, is not taking advantage of the license? And then what about the best of basketball? And what about these products that are repack products? You know, I don't know the legal behind this, so I'm just throwing it out there. But what keeps a Panini from doing a repack product in the future of cards that they produced 7 years ago, that it's already been released, it came out in a pack, whatever. Now they're just part of the single sales community at large that's selling product that's already there. Topps going out and selling cards that have already been made. Like, if I were them and felt like, look, we can't make as good of a product without the licensing, I would stop making the product. Because, again, that's my mentality with everything. If you can't do it in a quality way, you're just going to kill your brand. You're going to kill the valuation of the company. What are you worth anymore? You know, and a lot of the speculation around this Fanatics deal was, you know, here they were trying to buy Topps. Topps is up at this valuation because they have licensing, and now they don't have the licensing, so now their valuation will come down. They can scoop them up. You know, they have to find some way to create value.
I guess we'll see.
I think it's a great place to end, right? I think that's a great place, because this has been chock full of info, right? So we talked about the Mikey story is obviously the gold Prizm Kobe. A lot of people are gonna come back to that, and I think it's gonna inspire a lot of people, right? So I want them to take away from that. But we've talked about so many things: national, what they did well, what they did poorly.
Before we disconnect, before we hang up, John, where can people find you? What you're putting out there? Where can they, sign up? Where can they get you? What you're putting out there? Because I have a feeling people are going to listen to this and realize that anything they get from you is going to be valuable. So just, give folks where to find your stuff. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So on Instagram, I'm at Basketball Card Guy, all one word. That's the main place to reach out. You can message me on there, DM me on there. I have a website, basketballcardguy.com. So same name with a .com on the end of it. It's funny, the last 4 months, I got a lot of flack for this, but the last 4 months, I hadn't posted a new card on my website. I've been doing these sales on Whatnot, these sales on Loop. I've been doing things on Instagram. I've been going to shows, and I just didn't have any new inventory up on the site. So I've made a commitment every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. I post new cards, new singles up at basketballcardguy.com. People can check those out there. And I've started a series, which we were talking about earlier before the podcast, of tips. I'm doing these quick 30-second tips on Instagram. If you click over to my Instagram and then click on my reels, you'll see them there. And I'm just trying to focus on things that a lot of them are second nature to me now. They're like things, they're like card hacks. You know, they're just things that I've really enjoyed using, and they're really useful. The latest one was how to remove a. I think it was. I don't know if I did this, which one I did first, but I showed how to remove permanent Sharpie marker from a plastic.
I like the one you did where how to remove a scratch from a graded case, because that's valuable. Like, people don't want to get scratch PSA cases. So
yeah, so I'm doing all these little things that really, like, all the content that I'm putting out, I'm just trying to help collectors in general, you know, enjoy their cards more, save some money when they can. Like the top loader thing, it's like hard to find top loaders at all these days. And then when you find them, you're like paying like $7, $8, $9, $10 a pack now. It's insane when you actually get them. So the fact that you have like a marker mark on one, you can actually remove it really easily with a dry erase marker. It's crazy. I don't know the science behind it. It just looks magical. So I have that up on there too. And I have a whole series. I'm trying to do one of those a week where I'm just spotlighting things that people may not realize about cards or about collecting in those ways, and just encouraging on those zones. I do have like a weekly residency on Whatnot, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. I call it Whatnot Wednesdays. And for those of you that haven't seen Whatnot yet as a platform, it's like a combination of an Instagram live meets the last minute or seconds of an eBay auction is the best way I could describe it. You get all the excitement of watching the video live, and then you literally have a second, 30 seconds or a minute long countdown where you can place your bid. Whoever gets it at the end wins it. So every Wednesday night I do those for about an hour and a half. And I'm literally going through, I have like these giant drawers in my office. I'm literally going through, I pick out a box of cards. And then someone mentions players throughout the day on my Instagram. They say, "Oh, I'd love to see Marcus Camby." Oh my God, no one's requested Marcus Camby in the longest time. Take out a chunk of Marcus Camby's, throw them up on Whatnot, and then whatever they sell for, and so do individual cards, lots, just have fun with it, hook up people with the cards that they want to see. And on Loop, I do regular things on there. I have a Hall of Fame special coming up this coming Saturday, the 11th. So after this broadcast, the Saturday that you guys will be coming up next, I call it my Hall of Fame, HAUL of Fame. I will be going to the Hall of Fame induction gala and ceremony that's taking place next week. I will be picking up programs, interesting merchandise, cool stuff you can only get there, probably some autographs, like getting whatever I can get there, and then doing a Hall of Fame themed special show on Loop. Loop is an app you can also download on the phone, iPhone, or Android. Same sort of feel, no live auction piece, but really fun. Zero latency chatting, which I love, because people can actually type to you and you can talk with them live. It's really cool. So 2 free apps you guys can download if you haven't already, Loop and Whatnot. I look forward to seeing people on the site, on Instagram, and there.
Both great
all over the place.
Yeah, both great businesses. We've had Eric, the Loop CEO, on, awesome guy, product guy through and through, tech guy. I think he worked at Microsoft before.
Yeah,
and the Whatnot guys. I mean, they're the college bros taking the hobby by storm, but they're good dudes. I've met a few of them. They're good people. So
when I was losing my voice at National from talking so much, Whatnot was there with a bomb pop. I'll never forget it.
You'll never forget it.
They had their ice cream truck. I didn't win the Michael Jordan, but I got a free bomb pop. And I'll never forget it. That was great. Well done.
The bomb pop was a bigger prize.
Yeah, it was.
LukaNation, we love you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for supporting what we do. We try to bring you great guests. I mean, John is one of the best in the game.
Don't get much better than this. This was a great episode. Thanks, John. We appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you guys.